Hello and welcome back to No Pants Profits, or welcome to No Pants Profits for the first time. My name is Richard and I am wearing pants right now. I know that's a little weird for frequent watchers of this channel. It is about 3 o'clock in the morning on a cruise ship on the last day, and I do have my my nice little beer right here that's left, but I am in the middle of a completely empty central section of the cruise ship. Spans up 3 decks. It's kind of nice to know what's going on. And today, what I want to talk to you about is I want to talk to you all about the finances of the cruise ship industry. So I'm going to take this back. This is the grand foyer of the Celebrity Apex, but we're going to be focusing on Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian. They're very, very similar from a financial side. So I want to talk about the finances and why I believe you're going to see this in the end of December of 2021. Why I believe there may be, just maybe, a voluntary shutdown of the cruising industry in January 2022. I know that sounds a little bit crazy. I know that sounds a little bit nutty. Let's go ahead and let's have this beer and let's start talking. We're gonna walk and we're gonna talk. This is Richard from No Pants Profits. All right. So walking and talking time. So we're in the grand foyer of the Celebrity Apex, which is the newest cruise ship for Celebrity Cruises. Celebrity Cruises is the higher-end company under Royal Caribbean, which mainly does packages for their cruises, which include everything up front, so you see a lot less nickel and diming on board the ship. Now, in the cruise industry and in the vacation industry as a whole, the entire game is occupancy. The more people you have on board, the better. That's why most rooms on board this boat right here, this ship right here, the Celebrity Apex, which is an Edge class ship, as well as most cruise ships in the world, do sleep 2 people or more. And everything is based on a double occupancy price. So sometimes you might have a single traveler, and that single traveler may say, hey, I want to travel alone. And if you want to travel alone, you're going to pay what's called a single supplement, because you won't have someone else who could potentially spend money. Now we're talking spend money. Here's something you can spend money on. Here is the photo gallery. Coming right from the main area of the ship, you've got the photo gallery. And you pay to get on board, but the goal is also to make money once you are on board, to make money from you as a customer. You've got the cafe that serves everything like that. So you want to get in, they want to get as many people as possible. On this current sailing, which is a Christmas cruise on the Apex that left on December 20th, ends on December 27th, 2021. This ship holds about 3,500 people. There were less than 1,400 people on board this sailing. Another example of how they make money on board, getting you to book future cruises. So they are sailing at less than half capacity. In the hotel industry, in the cruise line industry, in every industry like that, if you cannot sail at near full capacity, or you cannot operate at near full capacity, your profit becomes almost zero. This is just a floating hotel. Now, what makes this different than, say, a floating hotel is that, it's floating. You need fuel to get you places. So you get a liquor shop and all that. And when you pay to get on board, what's nice is for cruise ships, and we're going to break down the finances in a minute, but for cruise ships, when you pay to get on board, all of your food and entertainment are generally included, the baseline food and entertainment. But what you'll see is entertainment's gotten a big step up on these newer cruise ships. This is the main theater. Again, this is, let me get you the exact time. And this is 2:30 in the morning on the 27th. And you'll see this gigantic screen right here. This is a gigantic multi-million-dollar screen. That is a screen that is running at 2:30 in the morning. Energy cost on that? Using fuel, using a lot of other things. Now, understand, on a cruise ship, you're generally using that fuel for propulsion anyway, so running those generators is not that much more expensive. But the important thing is not just what someone pays to get on board, but what they pay once they are on board. Ooh, our screen is transitioning. The windows are closing, and now we're going to Mars? I believe, for some reason, at 2:30 in the morning on the cruise ship, we have gone to Mars. Whoa, Siri. So, when you're paying to get on a cruise ship, you're going to pay a certain amount per night $100, $200, $300 a night. Now, one of them, the two most expensive cruises of the year are the Christmas cruise and the New Year's cruise. That's why most cruise lines, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian, will split those into two completely separate cruises. So you've got money for Christmas and you've got money for New Year's. Now, your money to get on board is again paying for your food and your entertainment. But there are bar charges, there are all kinds of other things like that. And how that is calculated is that is calculated in something that is called an APD. So just to give you an idea, APD is the average spend per person per day in dollars. So take, for example, this cruise we're on right now has about 1,350 people on board. There can be 3,500. There's about 1,350 crew as well. So you've got 1,350 people, passengers, and 1,350 crew. But you've got some 5-year-olds. That 5-year-old is generally not going to spend as much money as, say, a 45-year-old. So the idea is when you have an APD, that is calculating the average per person per day that will actually be spent on the ship. So over a 7-day cruise, you multiply the average per person per day. To give you an idea, for drinks, they're looking for, $10, $12 spent average per person per day. That's a very high margin item. So $10, $12 spent average per person per day makes the company very happy. When you're looking at, say, shore excursions, they want to have that $10, $12, $13 per person per day. Makes them very happy. Now, there's other departments like the spa and art on board that want to have a much lower average per person per day because they don't reach a big enough market. So, for example, the art auction has about 10 good spenders a cruise, and those 10 good spenders a cruise spend the majority of the money there. So one of the most important things, as strange as it sounds, is to fill the ships with prospects. Now, I'm not going to lie. On the third day of the sailing, again, this is the Celebrity Apex, and this is on the sailing left December 20th, 2021. On December 20th, December 22nd or 23rd, when we were in San Juan, Puerto Rico, the captain came on at 9:30 at night and said, "Hey, we've got a case of COVID on board." And that has prevented a lot of people from cruising right now. That's why you've got reasonable rates. Now, I'll tell you, we booked this sailing in the pre-COVID days, the pre-Omicron days. And booking in the pre-days, we paid somewhat of a full price, but we were able to actually go from a week before this cruise, meaning a pre-Christmas cruise, to a Christmas cruise for the same price. So that was very useful. But again, the way these cruise line industries work, it is all about how much you can fill up the boat. That is the most important thing. Number one, how much you can fill up the boat. And number two, how much you can get per person per day on average. And again, that averages out. A 5-year-old's not gonna pay that much. And you'll see they're likely right now behind this door. If I turn around, this is where the casino is. It's very likely they're actually sanitizing the casino right now. So there may be some things that we can't go into and take a little exploration of. But again, very likely at this point in time, they're sanitizing the casino because we're between voyages right now. So what they're kind of doing is a full sanitization. But other than 2 cases that we were told of, this is Celebrity Apex, December 20th sailing, other than 2 cases we were told of, there's not been any COVID cases on board. I don't know if I believe that. But other than 2 cases we were told of, there's not been any on board. Now what you've got is you've got all the dining that's actually built in if you go to one of the main dining rooms. But in that average per person per day, they do have upcharge restaurants. So the average per person per day, to give you an idea, the whole goal is about, on most cruises, to have about $60 or $70 spent per person per day on board. But this is one of the most premier dining restaurants on board. This is the Steakhouse, and this is $55. So, if everyone were to eat there every day, that would take a nice chunk out of, or nice chunk into, what the average person should be spending on a per day basis, to give you kind of an idea. So that's a steakhouse, and that steakhouse is giving you an idea on the average per person per day. So again, APD, average per person per day, is not only what you pay to get on board, but what's expected when you go ahead and you spend on board as well. So it's a very, very interesting conceptual idea of how that all mixes together. Now, it changes for different times of the year, costs different amounts to get on board. Now, in this time right now, Christmas and New Year's, it's actually the highest cost to get on board a cruise ship because the demand is so high. It's kind of a very, very simple supply and demand game. So you've got a simple supply and demand game. Demand is high, supply is low. But I will tell you, most cruise ships from the big companies, even in the highest demand time of the year, are sitting somewhat empty right now. So that's something a lot of people wouldn't expect, is that these cruise ships are sitting somewhat empty over this period of time. Now, why are they sitting empty? Because people are afraid of Omicron. They're afraid of what's going on. And what these cruise ships have done is they have given you 48 hours before the cruise to cancel and get a future cruise credit. So you can actually cancel the sailing and you can get a future cruise credit. Now this, in the cruising industry, this room that we're walking into right now is actually the perfect example of the entire cruising industry in a single room. And people go to me, okay, how can you have the entire cruising industry in a single room? That's what I talk about. So this is actually called Eden. And I want to explain to you how this room right here is actually kind of a microcosm of the entire cruising industry and how the cruising industry is affected. So this is a 3-level structure, and this combines entertainment, bar revenue, restaurant revenue, free restaurants, all into one big bucket. So you put it all in here. This is kind of the microcosm of the entire cruise ship world. This is something that's only available on the Edge and Apex, and in the future in the Beyond ship. And if I look here, you'll see Eden, kind of the forbidden apple. And you go, okay, well, why is this a microcosm of the entire industry? Because like I said, when you get on board, you are provided with, for what you pay to get on board, you are provided with food and you are provided with entertainment. So this is a food venue here. I'll take a peek in. And you've got this food venue right here. There's no food in here now because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. But you got a nice food venue here. This is a complimentary food venue. So you can actually eat in here, included in your sailing. So we've got that right there as a complimentary food venue included in your sailing. Then what you've got is you've got this room right here, which is available as an entertainment venue. So you've got these entertainment venues. They've got all kinds of different entertainment that comes here, bands, aerial artists, things like that. That is included in your cruise fare. But two of the biggest things not included in your cruise fare are actually the bar. Right here, we've got the bar. And we've got downstairs, we've actually got specialty dining. So in this one venue, we've got a bar, which is an upcharge. And this is one of the biggest upcharges on cruise ships, is obviously people go on vacation, they want to drink. Now there's a couple ways this can be approached. This can be done with, say, a beverage package that you get as part of your cruise. Well, that raises the overall price you're paying to get on board. It can also be done with a beverage package you purchase with your cruise, which that purchase of your beverage package will increase the amount you're paying in actually revenue that you're doing, money that you're spending on board. Or, you might go, drink by drink. And if you're going drink by drink, it's a little different. But to kind of show you a little bit more of the microcosm right in here, this down here, and we have not left this initial room, this is an upcharge dining venue. So this is actually $55 a person. And this is an upcharge dining venue on top of your included dining. And this, again, this has an average that they want per person per day to spend, but this is designed as an upcharge dining venue with a nice open kitchen right there. And you can see everything going on right back there in the open kitchen. This is not an included dining venue. This is an additional charge dining venue, so it gets the cruise line extra money. But here's the important thing. Venues like this that generate money and venues like the bar that generate money only generate the amount of money they're supposed to generate if you've got a full ship of passengers. If you don't have a full ship of passengers, it's not nearly as profitable to actually run these venues. Now, myself and my family that were cruising, we went to every single dining venue, and I personally visited every single bar, as you saw at the beginning of this video. Went to every single dining venue and visited every single bar. They're all closed right now because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Only room service is open, but when you're visiting those dining venues, you're actually spending money. Now, here's something very important in the cruise line industry. They want you to spend that money before you get on board. Why? Because you forgot, you've spent it, and you'll spend more money on board. So that's one of the useful things in the cruise line industry. They want you to spend that money before you get on board. So you go, I didn't spend $55 a person to go to that restaurant. But then you realize, hey, you did spend $55 a person to go to that restaurant. So it gives you a bit of an idea of what's going on. Now, in the cruising industry, what's also started to happen is a lot of what's called a cruise inside of a cruise. Now, what do I mean when I say cruise inside of a cruise? Imagine if certain cabins, like suites or different classes of cabins, had their own dining venues, had their own bars, had their own different things like that. So Celebrity Cruises, which is part of Royal Caribbean, RCL, has a completely separate brand that is an upsell. So we're talking the finances. This is essentially a cruise inside a cruise. It's called Aqua Class, and this is their main dining room. You cannot come to this main dining room. It's a little dark in here, but you cannot come to this main dining room unless you stay in a specific type of cabin. That's what's interesting. So unless you stay in a specific type of cabin, which is called Aqua Class, you can't come to this dining room. And nor can you go to something called the Persian Garden without paying extra, which is a relaxation area in the spa. So what you've got is we've seen these upcharge restaurants up here. And if we were to just go slightly downstairs, because on most, if not all cruise ships, you've got food in the back and fun in the front. So you see all the restaurants are right down these stairs. Now these are the included restaurants. Now what they've done is on this ship, they've actually named the included restaurants after old upcharge restaurants. So it's kind of interesting that they've named the included restaurants after the upcharge restaurants. But if I go right here, you'll see, we won't go in, but you've got all of these included restaurants. These are all included with your cruise. These are the main dining rooms. They'll serve, 2 appetizers, a meal, and a dessert. But the important thing to understand is they do not mind how much you eat. You can order 4 appetizers, 5 entrees, 3 desserts. You can order all those different things. But all of those do contribute to the cost. And when you pay to come on board a ship, a certain amount of what you pay per day is going to eating in the main dining room. So a certain amount of the amount that you're paying to get on board is going to the main dining room and to the buffet, which we'll go up to in a bit. But when you understand the fact that that money that you're paying to get on board is going to the main dining room, it is all about economies of scales. Again, if they can't fill the ship, and most cruise ships are not sailing even halfway full right now, if you can't fill the ship, then they cannot profit. Very important to understand. Most of these ships are sailing, somewhat near empty, and they're very highly leveraged. So we can take, they're very highly leveraged. They've got junk bonds, even Royal Caribbean, which I'm on right now. I'm on a ship that's, issued junk bonds against everything it owns, even against, we can see one side of the casino right now. I believe they're sanitizing the casino as we speak right now for the next sailing. But we've got a couple casino machines that have been disabled. And I actually played this machine about an hour ago. Made some good money on that machine. The Superstar Poker. But again, that is another part of the revenue, the money that's coming in after you have boarded. So you've got those 2 restaurants. You've got 2 more down here. Let's jump down here real quick. And you've got all different types of ways to actually spend your money on board the ship. Now, I did actually work on board cruise ships for quite a number of years. And when I worked on board cruise ships, I worked for something called the iLounge. It's kind of going back to my stomping grounds. I'm going to show it to you a little bit. But what this is an Apple store at sea. And when you come and you book a cruise, they'll give you a certain amount of money to spend on board. But what do they want you to spend that money on board on? They want you to spend that on high margin items, things that have a very low cost and a very high profit, like a drink, can of Coke. They charge $3 for if you don't have a package of any sort. You charge $3 for a can of Coke. That can of Coke at scale is costing you less than 10 cents. But if you were to go ahead and say, what's one thing that, it's hard to find a discount on, that I would want to have some credit to spend on board, and I take that credit because this is hard to find a discount on. This is what I was actually involved in when I myself worked on this brand of ship. I'm just a passenger right now, but this is called the Celebrity Eye Lounge. And what you'll see is they sell Apple Watches and speakers and computers and everything like that. And that is the last thing these cruise lines want you spending your onboard credit on. Because if you spend your onboard credit on these items, they're not making nearly as much money. So like a MacBook only has about a 5% profit margin, or an Apple Watch only has about a 3% profit margin from a retailer's perspective. So they're not making money on that, but if you do buy a Belkin accessory or something like that, that's got about a 50 to 70% profit margin. These speakers are about 60% profit margin. So profit margin becomes very interesting in understanding where these cruise lines want you to actually spend your money. So in understanding where they want you to spend your money, profit margin becomes very important, as does actually something called economies of scale. So like I said, another thing, we're talking about cruise lines and we're talking about operations of cruise lines. Another thing that's really big is norovirus. So outside of the COVID times, you've actually got a norovirus, and that can affect, because that means that you've got things coming out both the front and the back. So you want to make sure that you sanitize as much as possible. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about economies of scale a little more. Well, how do you feed a lot of people for breakfast or lunch really cheap? Well, if you know anything about Vegas, well, the right answer is you go ahead and you go to a buffet. So we're going to go to a buffet. Now, the buffet is not open right now, but the buffet is open from about 6 o'clock in the morning to about 1 o'clock in the morning. We're in those 2 o'clock in the morning. So we're in the 4-hour period right now where the buffet is not open. Which is kind of crazy. But we're in that little 4-hour period where they're like, no, the buffet is not open. You cannot get anything from the buffet. So we're jumping up to deck 14, and we're going to take a look, if we can, in at the buffet. Yeah, got that still open, and they are cleaning the buffet right now, because in the cruise line industry to the United States, there are only really 2 big things that the United States has over the cruise line industry, which is the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control, and USPH, which is United States Public Health. And they can be inspected by either of those at any United States port. So they can be inspected by either the CDC or the United States Public Health at any U.S. port of call. So, cruise ships are flagged in foreign countries, but as such, being flagged in foreign countries, and we're going to make it very slippery here. So I'm not going to go around this way, but I just want to get a little drink of water. I only have one hand. Get some water right there. And a lot of people in the pre-pandemic days, cruise ships were actually a very good form of vacation, because it's cheap overall. For everything you get your food, you get your entertainment, you get your transportation, because a cruise ship's obviously taking you from one place to another. You get your food, your entertainment, and your transportation included. But for all of that, there's actually an interesting catch. And that's what I want to talk about now, is the catch. I want to go outside to talk about the catch. The catch to all of this is cheap labor. That's the most important thing. You will generally, not excluding the entertainment team on board, which is mainly citizens from English-speaking countries, most of the crew you will find on board are not from primarily English-speaking countries. So they can actually get away with not paying them an amount that's nearly as much as the crew members from the English-speaking countries. Just got a cool image right here, right on the pool deck. So the labor cost is so low that it drives the cost of the rest of the vacation down. So that's a very unique perspective to understand that the labor cost itself is driving the cost of the vacation down. Remember again, you've got your pools, you've got your hot tubs, you've got all of that actually included. And then you have your food, which you have economies of scale, meaning that, if you're buying for a large amount of people, your cost per person goes down. So even at all these included restaurants and everything like that, their cost per person is a couple bucks a day to actually feed everybody. But if we're taking a look on, this is actually a really unique feature. All these cruise ships nowadays have to come up with unique features to stand out. This is an example, a very unique feature. This is called the magic carpet. This actually hangs out over the side of the ship. And it's one of those, it's more of a marketing feature than anything else, but it hangs out over the side of the ship and helps increase the bar revenue because you have another bar on the pool deck. And what's really cool is this bar can move up and down during the day. So the bar can actually move to where it's needed on the boat. So you'll see there's a bar right here, and the bar, it's empty right now because they don't leave the drinks out at night, unfortunately. But this bar can move up and down. And again, from a profitability and volume side, alcohol is the best profitable and volume thing on board. Alcohol is where the money is right now. You've got alcohol, and you've got upcharged food, and you've got other things of that sort. And then you even have to take, for example, if you want to talk about this, you'll see these little cabanas right here. You can actually rent these out during the day. So you see this is cabana number 2. It's wheelchair accessible. You can rent these out during the sea days. Again, you can sit on the normal deck for no additional charge. But if you do want to actually rent a cabana during one of the sea days, you can pay an upcharge. Again, these upcharges are what keeps the cruising industry alive. What's important to understand is when you're looking at these upcharges, the upcharges generally only work the way they were designed if you have near full capacity on the actual ship itself. So take, for example, Disney. Disney World in Florida, not Disneyland. Disney World in Florida actually just went ahead and opened the last of its hotels that were closed due to COVID. This literally happened a couple days ago. And that's because they finally got to the point that they were filling most of their hotels to a level of capacity in which it was profitable. That's the important thing to understand. Now, this time of year, with the rooms costing more, in order to be profitable, you have to be at a lower capacity overall. So, in order to be profitable this time of year, Christmas and New Year's time, you have to be at less of a capacity to have the same level of profit because it costs more to get on board. But I'll give you an example. In that buffet earlier today, I actually had a filet mignon for lunch. Because if you're at the time of year that you're paying more to be on board, then there's more money that can go towards the things that are included. That is the important thing. You've got more that can go towards what's included if you've got that right there. So what you'll see is these decks are all wet because I think they just swabbed the poop deck. But here's another area on board. And this is another multi-use space, kind of like I took you with to Eden before. But this is an entertainment space. So, kind of an entertainment space. It's got a giant screen right there. You can put a band right there. And this makes money from the bar. So, people are sitting out here. They were playing a football game earlier. And people are sitting out here. Well, you've got your football game. What are you going to order? Well, not a water, but you're going to order a beer during your football game. And that beer is going to take your thirst very well, but then mixed into this space. So this is a free to use space. Don't see any charges or anything like that. Up charges as of right now. Could be in the future. And then you've even got a restaurant right here. So this is an upcharge restaurant, not an included restaurant. I think this is $45 a person for lunch, for dinner, $25 for lunch on top of your cruise fare. So this goes into that average spend per person per day. If I just take a look right here, this is called the Rooftop Garden Grill. And this is kind of a barbecue restaurant of sorts. Did eat here earlier this evening. I'll say, personally, probably not worth the $45 they charge. But as is life. And you'll see we've got those smokestacks right there that say Apex. So here comes the big question. You know, I'm gonna put this right here, and I'm gonna turn it around, and we're gonna wrap up here. Well, I'm sitting here making a video explaining how the finances work. Depends what you pay to get on board, and the most important thing is that you spend once on board. This is standard in the hospitality industry. This is why Disney and other places, Disney, Universal, other places like that, even Six Flags, Legoland, they want you to stay on site because they're making more per person per day. So the average per person per day is very interesting in both what you're paying to get on board, because that's covering your lodging, that's covering your entertainment, that's covering your food, and that's covering your basic drinks, meaning essentially water. On most cruise lines, if you want more than water, you're going to actually pay for more than water. But, for example, there's a new entrance into the cruise line world called Virgin Voyages. And what Virgin's done is they've built in almost everything except for alcohol. Well, if you build in everything except for alcohol, you look and you go, how do you make money? Well, if you build in everything except for alcohol, you have to charge more up front. That's the interesting metric. So you can build in whatever you want, but you're charging more up front. Celebrity Cruises is very different than Royal Caribbean because Celebrity charges more up front and includes more. So on Celebrity, you'll get internet included, you'll get a drink beverage included, a drink package included, you will get your gratuities included, and you will get some onboard credit that they hope you don't spend on Apple products, because those Apple products don't have a very big margin. They want you to spend it on drinks, on t-shirts. Buy a t-shirt in the gift shop, I'll tell you, I got the 12 new Hawaiian shirts on this trip. So you will see when we get started back up with IPOs in January, I got a different outfit for every single IPO. But the finances are very interesting, because if you can't fill the ship, nothing else matters. This ship is sitting halfway empty. I'm on it right now. You can put it one of two ways. Either the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. In the hospitality world, if something is half full, it's not half full, it's half empty. So every butt that's not in a seat, meaning every butt that's not in a cabin, every butt that's not there, is a butt that can't spend money in the casino, in the shops, in the spa, in the art, in the photo gallery, in the Apple retail store, in the specialty restaurants, at the bar, everything like that. So when you're sailing at half capacity, it's probably not worth not having all those things open. You have to have them open, but you're not making nearly as much money on all of those things as you would if you were sailing at full capacity. The thing is, right now, being Christmas and New Year's, people are paying more money to get on board. They're paying significantly more money to get on board, which is kind of offsetting that. They're still not making a profit, in my personal opinion. And you can actually look at the financials. I'm going to link the financials below for Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian. They're probably still not making any money. And remember, not only are they making any money, they went into a significant amount of debt to actually survive coronavirus. So that's an important thing to understand. And here's what happens soon. What happens soon is you're going to have very low capacities because people are afraid of these viruses, of these variants, of Omicron. It's not something I really want to mention here, but like I said, there were 2 cases on this on the Celebrity Apex. There were at least 2 cases this sailing. Personally, I believe there were quite a few more. Don't have any information on that because the CDC has closed conveniently for the holiday break, and there'll be updates on the cases that happened on all of these ships next week after everybody gets off. And remember, with all these cruise lines, I hate to say it, but using a line that was used by former President Donald Trump, if you don't do testing, then you don't have cases. So that's an important thing to keep in mind there. If you don't do testing, well, then you don't have cases. But here's the problem. These ships are likely booked to a lesser capacity than they are currently booked in the January-February timeframe. What a lot of people don't realize is the cheapest time to cruise is when no one wants to cruise. No one's got time off after they just took all the time off for Christmas. So cruising is a 365-day-a-year thing, but the January-February timeframe are generally a lower cost cruise. And if you've got a lower cost cruise and you don't have many people on board, sometimes the best option may be to actually cancel some of your sailings. And that's what I think is going to happen. I'm going to put this online. A lot of people may say, hey, Rich, you're crazy. But I think what they're going to do is to not get the bad press. This is an interesting PR move, is to actually cancel a majority of their sailings in January and February. And this isn't coming from nowhere. This is coming from my brain, but what you'll see, from nowhere, there might be nowhere there. What you'll see here is that you've got, looking at what Royal Caribbean did on Friday let me back the date, Friday the 27th, 26th, 25th, 24th. All I have is my Apple Watch. On Friday the 24th, what Royal Caribbean did is they announced that for the next few weeks, the next few sailings, they're not going to be taking any more bookings. So what they're essentially doing is they're putting a pause on new people coming on board. And what you've got is you've got the people that are already on board. You have a lower number, you have a lower capacity. Now, some cruises are sailing at a higher capacity, but there is no capacity restriction right now. So if you wanted to sail full and you had the marketing capacity and the bookings to sail full, hey, you could sail full. What some lines are doing is they're focusing on the higher end guests. They're filling the suites, they're filling all that, and they're letting the rest of it fill in over time. But if you don't get back up near those capacity numbers, blame what you want. Blame Omicron, blame Pfizer, blame Moderna, blame Johnson & Johnson, blame Donald Trump, blame Joe Biden. It doesn't matter. If you can't get, let's say with no kids on board, if you can't get 3,200 people on this ship and 3,200 people on every other ship out there, well then you've got yourself a bit of a problem. And you're not going to be able to make that average per person per day to pay for the fuel, to pay for the ship, to pay for everything. And it's already showing. Royal Caribbean has issued junk bonds, like we said a little bit earlier. They've issued junk bonds. They've taken those junk bonds and they've put junk bonds and junk bonds and junk bonds and junk bonds. Like Exhibit used to say in Pimp My Ride, you want a junk bond inside your junk bond? We got you. So the interesting thing to understand is if you don't fill these ships, you don't make the onboard revenue. If you don't make the onboard revenue, there was a point in time when I was working for the ships that the onboard revenue was actually paying for the entire operating cost of the ship. So everything that was being spent on board, so bar, shop, spa, casino, everything like shore excursions, future cruise sales, all of that money that was coming in on board once people got on was paying for the food, was paying for the gas, was paying for everything of that sort. And if you're doing that, then the actual price that people pay to get on board, that's what we call pure profit, pure cheddar, pure money. So that's an interesting perspective to think of, is that you've got that and you've got pure profit, pure cheddar, pure money that can be made just by having that onboard revenue. And but that assumes that you've 100% packed the boat. In my opinion, I don't even believe, just running the numbers in my head real quick, because I can run the numbers. I've dealt with the numbers real quick. Oh, there we go. There's Apex. I've run the numbers before. If you run the numbers in your head, what you'll see is they're not even breaking even. They're not even covering food costs and fuel costs and everything like that is required to actually operate this ship. But Richard Fain, the CEO of Royal Caribbean, has said, he wants to get the flywheel moving, and you've got to get these ships up and running to show people that cruising is safe. Right now, with what's going on, it might be most beneficial to just cut losses and say, okay, we're not going to cruise for a couple weeks, a month or so, until Omicron has reared its ugly head. Because the last thing you want, there have been some cases that are 50, 60 cases on board a single ship. The last thing you want is actually an outbreak on a cruise ship. Because is it worth the PR nightmare to continue losing money? So that's why I personally believe that you probably should not be long. Again, up to you, not financial advice. You probably should not be long on Royal Caribbean, Carnival, or Norwegian stock, because all three of them, no one is exclusive here, all three of them are having trouble filling their ships. This is Richard from No Pants Profits, coming to you live on the 7th day of the sailing of the Celebrity Apex for its Christmas cruise. Unfortunately, wearing pants, even though I am No Pants Profits, reminding you that when you don't wear pants, all you got left to lose is your shirt. Richard coming to you live from the deck of the Celebrity Apex, heading back towards Miami, Florida. See you soon. Bye.